There's so many books that are going to tell you if you want to be successful, you need to say no to so many things. Yes, of course, that's true. But up until what point you say no to life? You say no to a healthy relationship? Because, of course, you need to avoid unhealthy relationships. And that's one part of the work. But if you have excluded everyone, then you're alone. Then what's happening?
Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. Today, we have Alessandro on the call with us. Alessandro, welcome to the show. What does peak performance mean to you?
Hi there, Mark. For me, I think it's all about balance. What I do at Holgren Wisdom, what I learned throughout the years as an entrepreneur is that you cannot get peak performance if body, mind, and energy are fully in balance. We go too often into one of the three of the categories. Probably we mostly forget about the energy. We maybe focus a little bit too much on the body, a little bit too little on the mind. But if the three elements are not balanced, there's absolutely no peak performance. And that's how diets get lost after a couple of weeks. That's how your meditation habits get lost after a couple of days. There is no balance, there is no peak performance.
So, how does one achieve this balance? Because if you're stressed out, it seems normal and natural for somebody to pick up a book on meditation and say, I'm going to start meditation, right? But then, like you pointed out, for a couple of days, it falls off. So, how does one add new items to their daily schedule and then finally achieve balance with them so that they can do it for a long time?
It took me many years, more than 12 actually, to really get to a proper framework of understanding. But I always like to say that to people, don't worry, I've done the work. And actually, so many other people have done this work so that you don't necessarily need to study all the nitty gritty of the details. You just need to follow the method. First of all, you need to understand that you are not your body. You are not only your body, you're not only your mind, you are a complex energetic system that if you go back into the very tiny subatomic functioning of how everything in reality goes, everything is energy, and our body is a container of this energy. Actually, if we look into the quantum biology, now it's a very growing field of understanding of how the energy flows through the body. We are a water salt battery. What does it mean? We are 70% and more of water in our body. And together with the micronutrients, with the minerals, we are literally have the fascial system, which is the tissue that connects and holds every single thing within our body. It's a battery, and it lets energy flow from the top of the head from the crown down to the feet. This is the first understanding. You are not your body. With your mind, you can actually control all of this flow of this energy. And when you have the balance of understanding how the energy flows throughout your body, if there are trapped energies through your body, and we can talk about what does it even mean having trapped emotion and trapped energy in your body. Once the system is actually unclogged, right, as a pipe, you literally clean it up, the flow of energy, the flow of water through the pipe can actually work properly. And that's how you obtain balance. Then you understand how the mind works, how the neuroscience is actually telling us that you take on new habits every 21 days, around 3 weeks. And what does it mean? It basically means that we do things in the 90% of the cases unconsciously, because otherwise it would be too complex to really take care of all the details. So every single time that you want to change something, you need to go through the steps of taking on a new habit. It takes 3 weeks, and it basically goes from the rational mind into the subconscious mind so that you don't have to think about it anymore. You probably have noticed yourself in your own journey at the beginning, starting something is hard. You need to put a lot of attention, a lot of rational energy and thinking, a lot of hard work, but then it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, you don't even notice that you're actually doing it, right? So this is the second step. And then, of course, the third step is through your body, you build up a series of habits and series of routines that keep you healthy and on check and balances. That's pretty much as running your own business. So why would you run very proactively with very goal-oriented structure your own business, but you won't necessarily do it for your own body?
Yeah, interesting. Let's go back to the beginning of it. We spoke earlier, and you also talked about your daily panic attacks you were getting during your startup journey. How did you come to understand this real cost of high performance, especially in entrepreneurship?
The first big reason is that I was led to be doing everything in a hard work way, in a hustle way. It really took me 12 years to understand this, okay? And I failed two companies out of this belief system, which it was totally crap. But somehow it brought me to get up to seven-figure revenues in the company. The companies actually moved forward, but it was such a drag, such a massive waste of energy that looking at back, I feel almost stupid. But of course, it's the kind of journey that you have to go through in order to understand things. So for me, the journey actually started because of this pain that I was holding on. And it got first somatized as a panic attack. I was having so many that I now joke when I say this, but of course it wasn't that easy. I used to close myself within a panic room in the office. We called it panic room because it was like an insulated meeting room where nobody could actually hear from the outside. And when people were having lunchtime, I was going there with my own earphones. And fortunately, I found on Spotify a breathing meditation that I used to do every day, more than once a day for several months. Through the breathing exercises, I had absolutely no idea, okay, what I was doing. I just needed to find the solution to stop the panic attack, to stop the anxiety, to lower the inflammation of my body. Then discovered afterwards why that work, how was that working, okay? So I was doing the breathing meditation, and after 6 months of breathing exercises, I stopped completely having panic attacks. And I asked myself, okay, how's that even possible? Okay, let's start to check what's behind here. And I got into meditation because that was like the most immediate connection from breathing, because for some reason I imagined that I was meditating when I was doing the breathing exercises. And I said, okay, who in the world really knows about meditation? I really want to learn how meditation works. And for some reason, I looked online, Buddhists, because that was the first thing in my mind connected to the meditation, the Buddhist people. And so I started to join a Buddhist center in Milan, where I was living in northern Italy. And from there, I got exposed to the Eastern philosophies and the Buddha teachings and all of the spiritual teachings. At the beginning, it was not so easy to understand. There were simple lessons like compassionate wisdom and doing things of love and so like meditation, like calming your mind. How does it work within the actual hormonal cycle balance within the body? So there were certain things that I could understand. There were other things from an energetic point of view that were really far off for me. And that was what I like to call like the first part of the puzzle. At the beginning, I told you, how can we get to peak performance through the balance of body, mind, and spirit and the energy? Okay. So that was the mind part. I started with mind. Then during COVID, what happened was that my body completely shut down. We were all locked down for several months, not spending any time outdoors, not connecting to nature, not being able to do any sort of movement. So that was really like a bad time for a physical health perspective. And that brought me into biohacking for the first time. I come from the food background, so I knew everything about what food is from a chemical perspective, nutritious point of view. Okay. So I knew how to eat healthy, but I didn't get enough deep on how is this connected with your performance, with the mental health and so on. And back then, I still remember I had a visit with a functional doctor, and I had so much problems of metabolism and so on and so forth. And after a very quick chat, he told me, just stop doing and wasting your money on medical tests. You have most probably a gluten and lactose sensitivity. So stop cheese, stop milk, stop whatever is lactose, and stop pasta, stop bread, stop gluten. For the very first time in my life, after 5 days of stopping everything, I woke up without brain fog after 11 years. And it was mind blowing. because first I had no idea what it meant to be waking up without brain fog, because I didn't even remember how was that living like. And then after a couple of days, I said, I don't really believe that. Let me try it out. I ate gluten again. And first day, nothing happened. Second day, nothing happened. So it's okay, come on. They're tricking me. This is not gluten. Third day, brain fog again. Go back into the books, go back into biohacking. And I discovered gluten sensitivity actually comes up to 5, 7 days afterward because it's a very slow process to get through your brain. And the majority of gluten sensitive people actually suffer from chronic depression because there is a problem of absorption of nutrients through the brain that doesn't actually let your brain functioning in a normal way. Okay, that was clear enough for me. Stop gluten. And then my journey of lowering inflammation and balancing the whole metabolic health perspective journey started. And that's a little bit how my physical body kind of bubble actually got into place. And then later on, actually, relatively recently, now I'm getting into the energetic world. Everything that really clarifies how the energy flows through your body, how it gets trapped through emotional trauma within our fascial system. And through the work that I'm doing at Whole Grain Wisdom, I have my working theory, which is helping founders, first of all, to find a way to get to peak performance, but by understanding that 3 out of 4 founders are actually neurodiverse. We are neurodiverse. So what does it mean? It means that we've been always considered the black sheeps in the crowd, right? And growing up like that creates so much psychological trauma that we carry along the way. And we today, every single day, if we don't work to untrap this energy that is being literally stored through your body in emotional trauma ways, we are still fighting this system. And we are fighting in the hustle world, in the hustle way of ego-driven performance, because we need to prove the world that we are worthy. It's not true that we are black sheep. It's not true that we are diverse. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you better than XYZ. So the more that we go into this pattern, the more that we keep dragging everything. Imagine like a backpack of stones and you're trying to run the ultramarathon with the backpack of stone on your back. Doesn't make any sense. So just to close up, the work that I do now, it's really about reconnecting the dots between these 3 elements and really shining light and acknowledging the importance of understanding we're not our body, understanding we are an energetic being, and understanding the role of emotions and trauma throughout our journey. Because if we don't untrap that, then we're going to have a clock system that is constantly going to be dragging us down.
Having been a founder yourself, started these companies and working with founders, burnout is such a big thing, right? That founders suffer from. A lot of founders who are close to burnout don't even recognize it. So, what are the warning signs of burnout that most founders miss until it's too late?
First, I have to say, for many years, I've been proud of being burnout. So that's even more madness in the recipe, okay? I was proud that I was working my ass off. I was proud that I didn't have time for my friends, for my family, for the rest of the people. And I was proud to be isolated and working because that's an addiction at the end of the day. And I got some other people get dopamine spikes from other things. I got the dopamine spikes from overworking. So the reality is that understanding that you are into that mess is not easy, especially if you don't want to get the help or the perspective of somebody close to you, or even somebody that can work with you. Some funders nowadays, especially the younger ones, do work with therapists, which is actually quite a good thing. I had the luck of always have a very close partner, which is now my wife, along the journey. So always doing things with 2 people, it's always better than just doing it yourself. But the signs are clear. If I can give a very practical example, which is also a physical example, if you're a male today and you wake up in the morning and you don't have an erection, which is the classical boner in the morning, that's the number 1 sign that your metabolic health is messed up. Because it's not true. And I actually discovered very few years ago, like not a lot, it's not true that only teenagers have boners in the morning. Actually, there are people in very highly healthy, balanced lives and metabolisms in their 80s that can actually get a boner every single morning. This is the one thing for men, okay? Of course, if you want to talk about the female, and we can talk about the physical perspective, then look at your cycle. If your cycle is messed up, that's already a clear sign that there's something off. If your metabolism is not working, there's already something off. If you're not sleeping well, it's already something off. There are many warning signs. You don't necessarily need to be on the ground to understand that something is weird. If you're highly susceptible to stress and to anger, for some people, for me especially, like I know when I'm off balance, when I get angry very easily. There are signs for everyone, and everybody has a very different energy profile, which also automatically represents a different characteristic to what are your triggers. But if you understand that there are certain things that could constantly happen as a pattern and they're not positive patterns, you should be able to understand, okay, that's my trigger. And when that trigger fires, that's already the clear sign that your body is telling you, hey, you're off balance.
So it's one thing to intellectually understand things are off balance and I need to fix them. But it's another thing to be able to emotionally accept them. Because as you said, so many of us entrepreneurs, we wear the burnout like a badge of honor because it's proof that you are working hard, right? So how did you navigate the guilt that is often associated with slowing down, especially in this hustle-driven culture?
I think this is really the biggest part of the work. And you won't acknowledge it, you won't understand it until you don't learn about what real successful founders and entrepreneurs out there are really doing. And I've recently had a conversation with a 3 million exit founder that works and did work even before selling the companies for only 3 hours a day. Okay. And we were very clear, like some of the biggest success people out there in the world, they don't overwork. If you look at Richard Branson, he bought a private island just for being out in nature and being forced to take alone time, meditative time on his own. Ray Dalio, one of the greatest hedge fund investors, meditated every single day of his mature life. And that's exactly what brought these people to success. So there is a huge kind of like a huge lie out there that is making you believe that hard work brings you somewhere, and it does bring somewhere to someone, but at what cost? At the cost of having 5 relationships broken, being 60 and not having even your children that come home to your place for having dinner. Like when you ask billionaires, what is your biggest regret in life? They most always tell you, I wish I spent more time with my family. And I have more friends and so on and so forth. So there's so many books that are going to tell you, if you want to be successful, you need to say no to so many things. Yes, of course, that's true. But up until what point you say no to life? You say no to a healthy relationship? Because, of course, you need to avoid unhealthy relationships. And that's one part of the work. It's an energetic point of view of a conversation. But then there is the part of, okay, but if you have excluded everyone, then you're alone. Then what's happening? So this is one thing. And then the second thing is what I really go back into the traumatic experience of founders, because 82% of the founders experience mental health problems. Okay. My whole work, my whole mission of this new company that I'm building now, Whole Grain Wisdom, is really about creating a space for founders where we really feel understood for the very first time. Because every single time people say, yeah, you should work a little bit less, you should have a little bit more work-life balance. What does it even mean? Like, how do you even know what the life of a founder really is? I've been a founder, and I can tell you, I was the black sheep of the family. I always had to prove everyone that I was better than everyone. I don't really know why, but I did. And that created me so much of this pattern that I constantly had to be fighting, fighting, fighting until the point that brought me to collapse, to burnout. Many times, actually, not just one. And at that point, that's where I started doing a lot of personal work, inner healing work, energetic work. And I understood that these trapped emotions that are generated during these times of really hard traumatic experiences, it can be from a physical accident, of course, but for us, it's really just about adding all of these little things, all of these little traumatic situations gets trapped through our body. And until we don't release them, we almost have a wall in front of ourselves where that blocks us to even get to see the other side. After you have the time for yourself, after you actually understand, oh gosh, I don't really have to prove anything to anyone. Oh, really? How come? Why did I even have to think about it before? All of this work is really like a gift that you're giving yourself because you're giving yourself the time and especially the compassion to be doing this work for yourself so that tomorrow you can show up a better version. And the more that you do this work, it takes time, of course, it's not easy, that all of these walls, all of these layers that are completely obscuring you from seeing the other side are going to get thinner and thinner until the point that you start to see through. And when you start to see through, then you really go back in time, like you change perspective and you see, oh gosh, I really wished that I started this many years before. That's what every single founder tells me when we talk about these topics. They all tell me, fuck, I really should have started 5 years ago. Because when you also do this work, it automatically reflects on the quality of the energy, on the quality of the goals that you put within your company, and everything gets better. You attract better people to work with you, you attract better clients to work with you, you start to have less problems because you are in a position where you start to see the positive side and not just the fight situation.
What do you see is the biggest disconnect that mainstream wellness advice has from what actually works?
I think there is a big disconnect, and I had a big calling for my current mission, which is bridging ancient wisdom with science. What the reason why I'm so passionate, I'm really dedicating my life to this topic, is because first I understood that we are all saying the same thing. So the knowledge that comes from thousands and thousands of years ago is telling us one truth, which is actually very exactly the truth that science is seeking and every other modern practices is preaching, okay, which is happiness, which is balance, which is transcendental truth, and it's helping others, and this sense of community that we are all in it together as human beings on this planet, etc., etc. So the disconnect is thinking that these two things are separate, that me and you are a different thing, are a different person. We live in different planets. We have different goals. We all want to be happy at the end of the day. And the traditional systems, they preach you something like a recipe that it should be good for everyone. Like what I'm telling you, you need to follow it every single day, and that's the only thing that matters. There are few things that may be true, but if you still go back into the past times, they all have pages and pages of books where some advices were good for some and some others for others. There is a very good metaphor that I listened the first time when I was in the Buddhist classes and teachings back in the times. And it starts like this. So imagine that you are in a pharmacy, right? And you see the walls covered with different boxes of different pills. If you're sick, you're not going to take all of the medicines in the pharmacy. You're going to say out loud what is your current issue, and then somebody's going to tell you, this may work better, this may work better. Everything else is just in the shelf for somebody else that has a different problem. So this is exactly what is the current situation with wellness. There is not one recipe fits all. Every one of us has a different energetic profile, and we can go both into the science and the spirituality of what I just meant. But what it basically means, it means that we are the same people because we are still human beings, but we have different characteristics that make us seek different things in life that are unique to us. So, what I feel the majority of us as entrepreneurs is that we've got brainwashed that we need to work hard our asses off so that we can make $1 billion exit and so that we're going to be happy. But the reality is that the majority of the funders that get to the $1 billion exit or even try to get there, maybe they get $1 million exit, they're not even happy when they make the exit because they're empty. That was the company was their life goal. Nowadays, they don't have anything else to do. What's their purpose in life? My purpose was my company, so I need to build a new one. This is the problem, what I'm saying, right? That you're driven by your ego. You're driven by the fact that you are constantly fighting to prove the world that you're worthy. Until you don't accept and you don't give the gift to yourself to accept yourself and say you're enough, you're never gonna be ending this hamster wheel situation. You're never gonna jump off the wheel.
But doesn't saying that you are enough take that drive away?
That's a classical question. That's exactly like that. As soon as I say this, as soon as I even ask to other people, then the other question is, okay, but then it means I should not have ambitions. That's not true.
Think about it. A race car driver, like you said, a lot of people who are building billion-dollar companies, right? They build a billion-dollar company, and now what? There's nothing. But the same is true for everybody in who is pursuing anything. The race car drivers, one guy wants to win F1. He wants to be the world's fastest man. And when you get there, what's next? It's true for soccer players. That's for any athlete, anybody who's pushing their limits to get to the pinnacle of it. When you get there, there's not much after that. So
Yeah.
it's a conundrum that everybody faces. But how does accepting oneself affect the performance in good way, bad way, or neutral?
Yeah. I don't want to sound as a guru, okay? Because I am figuring out in the very same way that everybody else out there is trying to figure it out, okay? I can only tell you what's been my experience so far and what worked for me truly. What did work for me is stopping to do things as somebody else put it in my mind. And what I mean by this is that I did a lot of personal work to map, to clarify, and to break down and to unleash and to eradicate from my own mindset all of those little belief systems that as a seed, they were being put on my head by somebody else, by my parents, by my school, by society, whatever, by investors, by accelerators, if we really want to talk about the funding topic. So there are a lot of things that actually you are doing as a habit, but they're not yours. They don't really belong to you. So this is already a first part. Second thing is once you do this work, then you start to automatically question yourself is, okay, but what the heck am I here to do? And the beauty of meditation, the beauty of introspection, the beauty of giving and allowing yourself the time to reflect on these questions is, okay, once I eradicated everything that the world tried to put in my head, what is really mine? What is it really my mission? What is it really my own purpose here in this planet, in this life? And that's where some people may get real big realizations. I had many. I did work and I did play in a sense of experiment with altered consciousness and different states of consciousness. I'm a big believer in a safe use of psychedelics for this purpose because they really help you disconnect your rational mind, your right part of the brain, and they really allow you to reconnect with the other part, which is the intuitive part of the brain. And that's where intuition starts. And actually, more than starts, you rediscover it because when you're a child, you actually are fully intuitive. You don't have all of this fake belief system that society put in your head. So if you go back into those times, you don't want to do psychedelics, no problem. Try to meditate and remember who you wanted originally to become when you were a child, like up to 10 years old. Who did you really want? What was your dream when you was 10 years old? My dream was to be an inventor, as my grandpa. And many years later, somebody asked me this question, and I answered, not even connecting the dots. Yeah, I wanted to be an inventor. And they told me, but you are an entrepreneur. You're actually inventing new companies and building new things. And it's like, actually, I never really understood it that way. Yeah, it's true. Okay. And then I did other works that really made me understand the importance and the beauty of doing things to help other people. The drive is not because I need to chase the peak. Is yes, I want to get to that peak, but I want to enjoy the road together. There's a saying in Buddhism, they say you cannot see the higher peak from the lower peak. You need to be in the upper one to actually only be able to look backward and know and see, okay, that's the road that I've made. This also means that we are too much focused on the final objective, the $1 million exit, that we completely forget that the journey together should be fun, should be enjoyable. If it's not, and if especially if it's not for too long, you're driving yourself to burnout. So the only real difference to this very question that you asked me, what is the difference? Is that you're gonna enjoy the ride. You're still gonna have the same objective. It's okay, but you're gonna enjoy the ride. You're not gonna be fixated on the goal, and then everything else that be is in front of your goal is gonna be something to punch.
Yeah. If you could whisper one message to every overwhelmed entrepreneur who's listening to this podcast, what would it be?
You're not alone. Because the problem is that we do all feel lonely in this journey. I like to say that founders are like high professional athletes with a very big difference. If you're an athlete trying to win the Olympics, you're going to get into a club, you're going to get into a federation, and that club and that federation is going to provide you a personal team to support you in this journey. They're going to give you nutritionists, they're going to give you trainers, they're going to have mental coaches, masseurs, physiotherapists, whatever is needed to be winning. A founder thinks that this journey has to be done alone with no support system, and every resource possible is going to go to the company's team. That's a different type of team. You need a team for yourself to support you in this journey because it's not possible to be done alone. And especially, it's not even fun. It's very boring and it's very lonely. It's depressing, actually.
Tell us a little bit about whole grain wisdom. What are you trying to achieve with it? What's the legacy you want to leave behind it?
Yes, Whole Grain Wisdom is my third official venture after 12 years of running businesses. I'm building it completely differently from everything I've done so far. It comes from my position, as I'm telling you, of really acknowledging what's my long-term vision, which is merging ancient wisdom and science for peak performance. And all the Whole Grain Wisdom, the first space that truly understands founders. It means that I'm developing the media part, which is talking with entrepreneurs as well as you're doing, to really discuss about the pain story behind the success stories, because we often don't talk enough about what really takes to go to the peak of the iceberg that very few people talk about. The second thing is the educational part, which is showing you science-based hard facts, how body, mind, and energy are all connected within each other, and how only through this balanced work you can reach peak performance. And then the third part, which is actually the one that I'm even the most excited of, I'm organizing retreats around the world, founders only, closed doors, private moments where you don't have to feel alone in the journey. We become all brothers and sisters in this space. And within this space, together, we work on a 6 steps methodology that I developed, which is resetting your operating system, understanding what are your trapped traumas and how to liberate them from your body. And then after we unclog the system, then we go back into what does it mean building a real successful routine, understanding what is your an energetic archetype, your energetic profile, and then building something tailor-made for yourself. Imagine what the new health companies, tech health companies are doing with genetic diet, customized. I'm doing this, but for your energetic profile, which is essentially the whole reason and the whole way the energy flows through your body. So it's even more profound than the chemical part of a normal diet. And we, by the way, have a retreat coming up in November 2025 in Thailand from the 3rd to the 8th of November. And I'm very happy to offer a discount to your listeners, and also very happy to join anyone that wants to come in this family. It's going to be like a pop-up family for a week together.
I love it. Alessandro, it's been wonderful talking to you. Your personal life experience, struggling through the different things that you went through, and then discovering an alternative reality that is more suited for people like ourselves is a gift. Because you're right, when you turn on YouTube or you take a business course, it's about the hustle mentality. It's about going as hard as you can. But as somebody who has done it for so long, there you have discovered there are other ways to go about it. And I think more people need to learn about it. So thank you for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure, Mark. Thanks so much.